At 6:30 a.m., local time 2 U.S. Navy MH-60, Romeo Seahawks from the USS Eisenhower and USS Growley were providing top cover for a naval task force as it patrolled the volatile waters of the southern Red Sea. While the patrol had been relatively quiet so far, everything was about to change in a matter of seconds. Unknown to the Seahawk pilots, a formation of Houthi fast attack boats operating near Houthi had the commercial escort and its high V-value assets in their sights, and they let loose a salvo of guided rockets and bursts of machine gun fire on the Singapore-flagged container ship Mars Congo as it steamed through the southern Red Sea, about 55 nautical miles southwest of Al-Hida, Yemen. The Houthi plan was simple swarm. The cargo ship boarded her quickly and seized control before her crew could send a distress signal. But there was just one problem. 2 U.S. Navy MH-60 Romeo Seahawk helicopters were already airborne and closing fast launch from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Growley. The Seahawks were call signs Lancer 71 and Lancer 72. Their job was to perform maritime security overwatch and investigate any suspicious-looking surface contacts. Pretty easy, right? Well, what they encountered instead was a full-scale hostile boarding attempt underway against a U.S.-escorted commercial vessel. The Mars Congo had requested assistance the moment the boats closed within visual range. The ship had onboard security contractors with Trident Group, and as soon as the Houthi small boats began closing within 6 nautical miles, they took up defensive positions only armed with M4 rifles and an M240 machine gun. Their firepower was no match for what the Houthis were packing on board. The Houthis had rockets, RPGs with thermoric warheads and belt-fed PKMs that all outranged and outgunned what the merchant vessel had. Within the next few minutes, the small boats will have closed the distance and be right alongside trying to board her. The Seahawks responded immediately to the distress call. Within seconds of receiving clearance, both helicopters accelerated at a speed of 160 knots to close the 26 nautical mile gap between them and the vessel. But time was not on their side. With that closure rate, it would take 9 minutes to get there, about 5 minutes too late to stop the Houthis, so the pilots had to devise a plan fast that hit the Houthis hard before they could scramble over the merchant side. At 6:31 a.m., the Romeos detected 4 Iranian-provided bog hammer-style high-speed attack craft on radar. Each vessel was 7 to 10 meters in length, rapidly approaching the Maris Kong Zhou at 50 knots. Moving in a tight, converging pattern. Aboard each boghammer were 3 to 4 Houthi fighters equipped with PKM light machine guns, RPGs, and AK-47 rifles. 2 of them carried thermobaric Taba-14 RPGs, weapons capable of penetrating up to 300 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. In contrast, the average hull thickness of merchant ships like the Maris Kong Zhou is just 25 millimeters, making them highly vulnerable. To complicate things further, each craft was fitted with Starlink satellite terminals, transmitting live data to command units in Houthi-controlled Hodeidah. The use of Starlink was no accident. It enabled the Houthis to synchronize swarm attacks by accessing real-time imagery from drones overhead, coastal lookouts, and command centers. This wasn't a random assault, it was a calculated offensive modeled on Iranian asymmetric naval warfare strategy. Though unarmed, the Maris Kong Zhou wasn't entirely defenseless. At a distance of 1,800 meters, her onboard security team opened fire using M240 Bravo machine guns mounted on reinforced positions along the stern and port side. They managed to damage 1 boat but couldn't halt all 4. Within 47 seconds, the fast boats had reached 600 meters, soon entering RPG range, and the RPGs came. Suppressive fire from the attackers disabled 1 boat's rudder system, but from Boat 2, an RPG round was fired, narrowly missing the superstructure by 3 meters. The superstructure, the raised portion of the ship where operations are controlled, was a vital target. Had it been destroyed, the vessel would have lost both maneuverability and command capability. At this point, the security crew was on the brink of being overwhelmed. That's when the Seahawk helicopters arrived. Because the ship's defense team had held their ground, the boghammers remained at 600 meters, trying to soften the target before attempting to board. That delay was enough for Lancer 71 and 72 to close in. By 6:39, they were only 1 mile out. With the Romeos cleared to fire, they now had to choose which threats to eliminate first. Beneath the Seahawks' nose was the ANAPY-153V radar system. While it had tracked all 4 boats from 42 kilometers away, sea clutter interfered with precision. The radar was picking up 32 separate signals in the vicinity, but the pilot fine-tuned it to narrow pulse mode, emitting energy bursts at 0.5 to 1 microsecond intervals, providing the high-resolution data required to lock on. This radar guided the Romeos to their targets. Using 2 primary functions, the system allowed the helicopters to position directly above the enemy. One was Moving Target Indicator, MTI, which leveraged Doppler shift, the same principle behind the changing pitch of a passing motorcycle to differentiate between solid objects and waves. By interpreting the frequency changes in reflected radio waves, the radar could confirm if there was an actual vessel or just ocean disturbance. Once the MTI validated a moving object, the pilot switched to inverse synthetic aperture radar to generate clear, detailed imagery using the same Doppler effects. With confirmation of movement and high-fidelity visuals, the pilots now knew without a doubt they were tracking the Houthi boats, and it was time to engage. Each Seahawk was outfitted with 2 GAU 21.50 caliber machine guns, one on each side. These powerful weapons could fire up to 1,100 rounds per minute with an effective range of 1,850 meters. The ammunition was a mix of armor-piercing, incendiary, and tracer rounds, engineered to tear through the light hulls of the fast boats. But the Houthis fired first. At 6:40, the boats opened up on the helicopters using PKM machine guns. Tracer fire whizzed past the Seahawks, with some rounds coming within 15 meters. That was their final mistake. The Seahawks immediately descended to 150 feet for a better firing angle. At the same time, they deployed countermeasures. Each helicopter released 12 MJU-68B flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles, creating infrared and radar reflective clouds behind them. These acted as decoys in case of any heat-seeking missiles, like shoulder-fired man-pads. The flares burned at 2,200 degrees Celsius for 2.5 seconds, enough to divert incoming threats. No missile was detected, but the pilots took no risks. Then chaos erupted. At 6:41, Lancer 71 locked onto Boat 1. The door gunner unleashed 3 bursts of .50 caliber fire. Rounds tore through the engine, igniting the fuel, and the boat was consumed in a fiery explosion, sinking within 45 seconds. Before it was fully submerged, Lancer 71 pivoted left and targeted Boat 2. A short burst disabled its rudder, followed by a 3-second spray that caused the boat to lose all steering, capsize, and begin sinking. By 6:42, both Seahawks focused on Boat 3. It got hit from both sides, peppered by dozens of armor-piercing rounds that breached the hull below the waterline. The crew tried to bail out, but it was too late. The boat slipped under the waves. By 6:44, with 3 boats destroyed, the helicopters began alternating fire on Boat 4. But after witnessing the fate of its comrades, the last boat turned and fled, heading northwest, trailing smoke as rounds continued to riddle its hull. The Seahawks did not pursue, as their mission was to stay with the merchant vessel. In under 7 minutes, the 2 helicopters had eliminated 3 enemy boats and fired an estimated 1,800 rounds. But this was just the beginning of the U.S. retaliation. In response to the unprovoked aggression, U.S. Central Command determined that sinking a few boats wasn't a sufficient response. They needed to send a stronger message. Within 8 hours, the USS gravely opened fire on known Houthi coastal radar facilities used to coordinate these maritime attacks. Using its 5-inch Mark 45 Mod 4 naval gun, the ship unleashed 92 high-explosive and airburst shells. Each shell weighed 70 pounds, flew at 2,600 feet per second, and had a max range of 9 miles. The Gravely patrolled the Yemeni coast with impunity, hammering one radar site after another. Targets at Jabal al-Tayr, Al-Mocha, and Ras Isa were all destroyed before sundown. These sites had been instrumental in tracking coalition ships in the Red Sea over the previous 2 weeks. Their destruction crippled Houthi maritime surveillance by roughly 60%, as confirmed by post-strike drone assessments. But the reprisal didn't end there. On January 1st, additional airstrikes commenced. 4 FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA 131 aboard the USS Eisenhower launched, each carrying AGM-154C joint standoff weapons. Their target, the Al-Dura Missile Depot. Each missile housed a 500-pound broach warhead capable of penetrating 3.7 meters of reinforced concrete using a molten metal jet traveling at 14 kilometers per second. At 6:43 p.m. local time, 4 missiles struck the facility, triggering multiple secondary detonations. Intelligence intercepts confirmed the destruction of 18 CASF drones, 4 NOR anti-ship missiles, several missile guidance systems, and the deaths of 2 Iranian advisors and 12 Houthi operatives. This operation made one thing clear. The U.S. had adopted a new policy. They wouldn't just defend against attacks, they would strike back hard to ensure such threats are never repeated. Bye for now.